Today I would like to talk to you about General Motors and their ignition crisis. I will give you a report on the unbiased facts to make you aware of the possible problem with these vehicles. GM is faced with a serious problem dealing with the possible deaths and injuries associated with the alleged defective switch and possible cover-up. It is believed that these defective GM switches may be linked to as many as 21 or more deaths. GM is faced with a serious problem dealing with the possible deaths and injuries associated with the alleged defective switch and possible cover-up. All of this is according to the Wall Street Journal, Fox News, CNN, and CBS News. Once again, we are talking about the problem with the ignition switch, the possible death and injury, and what GM is doing about the problem. First off, we will discuss the problem that GM has with the ignition switches. The number one point is the problem with the ignition switch is that the switches in question can suddenly move to the off or accessory positions. This will in turn shut down the main power to the engine, which will also kill the power steering and brake system, which causes a very hazardous situation for the driver. When the engine has been shut down by the ignition control, the driver can ultimately lose control of the car and crash. Then the airbags will not inflate due to the power loss. GM possibly knew about this defect for 11 years and allegedly did nothing about it. Now we will discuss what this has led to. This has led to many possible deaths and injuries as of September 22nd, 2014. The GM small cars that have faulty ignitions have been responsible for as many as 21 deaths or more. As for injury claims, as many as 532 were received by September 19th, 2014. Additionally, we have the following actions being taken by the General Motors Corporation. So what is GM doing about the problem? Well, first off and foremost, the cars in question were recalled by GM in 2014 to replace defective switches. Also, a fund was set up by General Motors to pay legitimate claims by victims, $1 million for deaths and $300,000 for each surviving spouse of the victim. Which brings us ultimately to this: GM is faced with a serious problem dealing with the possible deaths and injuries associated with the alleged defective switch and possible cover-up. Our main points once again are: we have discussed the ignition problem, the death and injury tragedy, and what GM is doing to fix the problem and compensate for the victims. In closing, GM is faced with a very large and complicated problem, and they're trying to deal with it the very best they can. And thank you for your time.